From the Whiskey 61 Lounge in the Bank Plus studio.
Check it out.
Is Ben Roethlisberger kind of the dude, the party guy that's been able to make it work at an organization that's pretty buttoned up in the Pittsburgh Steelers, but he's the guy that we all know from college that led the way in the keg stands and the big apartment parties or the frat house, and was always borderline going overboard, but could just keep it. I mean, again, he led the way on the Raging Keggers.
Yeah. I think he's...
But avoided, when the cops showed up at 2 a.m., somehow always maneuvered his way
100%.
out of the deal.
He's Jay Cutler with better leadership skills.
Yeah.
I mean, he's got the same kind of just like,
I don't give a damn attitude.
Yeah, he's a little, especially at this point in his career.
Yeah.
I mean, he grew out the beard a few years ago, and it's just like gone all downhill from there. Hey, but they're 10-0, baby.
I mean, do you think that guy's scared to slam beers?
No.
Roethlisberger. And the Rooneys, legendary Pittsburgh Steeler owners, were that close, Blake, to letting him go when he was getting in, because he was a party boy in his 20s.
Mm-hmm.
Total party boy.
Everybody remembers what happened in Georgia.
Right. And man, he's had a stellar career, Hall of Famer. I mean, he's a freak. What is he, 6'6", 260?
Yeah, everybody for the longest time.
He looks like the guy in your bowling league.
Well, he was the guy that everybody bounced off of. Like, before there was Cam or... I'm trying to think of another big, stout guy. Like, I mean, really, like Ben Roethlisberger and Byron Leftwich were these two like guys where you went, and obviously Ben much more talented with the arm than Byron, but built the same, where they were just like these statues.
He also was lucky that he was with the Pittsburgh Steelers.
100%.
You know what I'm saying?
No.
Those first 3 or 4 years, he got...
Well, he walked into Jerome Bettis and one of the top 5 defenses in the league.
No doubt.
And that changed. What's interesting is how that changed over the course of his tenure, and now they're an offensive team. Or they were an offensive team. Now they're back to being defensive. But yeah.
Hey, answer this question. Tommy on the Mississippi Ag John Deere Tractor text line, 601-885-3776. We all know Aaron Rodgers can't slam beers. Good Lord, that was embarrassing.
Yes.
He's referencing the NBA game. I guess it was a Milwaukee Bucks game.
Yeah, pre-pandemic when all the Packers were there.
Who was the lineman that was like sitting across
like
the court?
Bakhtiari. I think it was David Bakhtiari or something like that.
He hammered his beer. Rodgers kind of couldn't really hit. Maybe that's the difference between Ben Roethlisberger and Aaron Rodgers.
Are you saying that's why Roethlisberger has 2 Super Bowls and Aaron only has 1?
Yes.
Fair enough. I agree. So you're saying Tom Brady can really slam beers because he's got 6 Super Bowls?
Well, I think he's the other extreme. I think Tom's the guy that shows up at the party and leaves at 9. He makes a quick, he comes through. He's got a bottle of water in his hand, and people want to party with him. He just kind of roams through, says hello, and he's out. Ben's the one, Roethlisberger is leading the way.
100%.
The charge.
Yep. He's
the guy that, you remember in college you'd walk in and somebody'd have 8 cases of beer and you were like, it's 3 of us. That guy that always went over, hey, I ran to the store and got some beer. You've got 8 cases. Well, what are we doing? Right? It's 3 o'clock on a Thursday afternoon. That's Roethlisberger. Yeah, I just wanted to make sure we had enough. That's Ben. That's right. Yeah,
I'm with you.
That's Roethlisberger.
I'm with you.
We're going to have David Johnson coming up next. Rebels 247 catch up with everything out of Oxford. Ole Miss wins the Golden Egg game. They'll have it for at least a year. Corral, Elijah Moore, the group played well, did what they needed to do on Saturday. That was a 31-24 game. 31-24 game. And we'll have David on to talk recruiting and so on. We've got NFL today, Ravens Steelers at 2:40 this afternoon. Get your beer and wings ready. Sal and Mookie's has delicious wings. I got them for the Golden Egg game on Saturday. And, hey, they were delicious. There's several other places around that do it really, really well. Also, Drago's charbroiled oysters. Oysters are great year-round, but when it's super cold, they're even better. And Drago's Seafood Restaurant and Oyster Bar in the Hilton Jackson property. Charbroiled oyster, seafood gumbo, and try their fried catfish po' boy or fried oysters po' boy at Drago's Seafood Restaurant and Oyster Bar. Out of Bounds, streaming live on the Out of Bounds radio app. You can watch the show right now. Go to YouTube, search Out of Bounds Sports. Welcome in David Johnson, Ole Miss Insider, Rebels 247. And David joins us on the Abita Andy Gator guest line. David, good morning. How are you?
Hey, good morning, Bo. How are you?
I'm doing well. Ole Miss comes away with the Golden Egg for the first time in 2 years. Played a good game, did what they needed to do. Kind of give me your one big takeaway from the game on Saturday, David.
Yeah, I think you summed it up perfectly. They did what they needed to do, and they came away with a win. It wasn't impressive by any stretch of the imagination. It was as Egg Bowls generally go. It's a hard-fought battle on both sides, and it ended with Mississippi State throwing in the end zone, trying to tie the game up. Kind of a similar storyline without all the drama of last year's Egg Bowl. But I think if you stick your finger in the air and just see which way the wind's blowing with this Ole Miss program right now, they're on the rise. There are good things happening on the field. They've won 3 in a row for the first time in 5 years. And, things seem to be about to come together for them on the recruiting front.
Okay, I want to get into that real quick, though. I think we all knew he could be a good player. But Elijah Moore is a great player who's going to go on and play in the NFL. I think a lot of people would have said, oh, yeah, he could have a good career, be a heck of a slot receiver. But, I mean, he's one of the best receivers in the country. Could be a first or second round draft pick. Did you ever see that, David, a few years ago?
Nope. No, it did not. I felt like he had a professional career ahead of him. But, as far as guys raising their stock in this upcoming NFL draft, you'd be hard-pressed to find somebody that's raised their stock as much as Elijah Moore. He has proven his versatility. I mean, he's lined up as running back. He's lined up in the slot. They use him on jet sweeps. He can certainly return punts. This is a kid that can do a little bit of everything. The only question is, how that size transfers up to the NFL game. Other than that, though, I mean, as far as the college game, he's just got a mojo about him. He's always open, Bo. He's always open. And I've watched him. I'm trying to figure out how he gets so wide open all the time. And even when he's covered, his hands are so great that he's going to make that catch 99% of the time.
I'm absolutely blown away at how good he is. I mean, he's great. He's first-team All-American type player, first-team All-SEC type player.
Yeah.
You know what Cole Kubelik said, David?
What's that?
So Cole Kubelik called the game on Saturday from the sideline. He called Elijah Moore an elite route runner. That's pretty impressive at this point in his career.
Yeah, no doubt. And Ole Miss has Kirby Smart to thank for that. To be quite honest with you, I mean, Elijah Moore was headed to Georgia, and Kirby dropped him. People forget that. He should be wearing the red and black of the Georgia Bulldogs, and Kirby didn't have a spot for him. He was recruiting so well. So Elijah Moore ends up in Oxford, Mississippi, and, I guess, as they say, the rest is history. But he'll go down as one of the greatest wide receivers in Ole Miss history, and there are a bunch of those guys that are on that great list, and a couple of them doing work in the NFL right now.
Yeah, AJ and DK are putting on a clinic. It's incredible, and man, Elijah Moore, he may be the best receiver in the history of Ole Miss at the college level, and AJ was great.
Yeah.
And Moncrief was great, and others. Mike Wallace, his last year was unbelievable, and there have been others, but this young man is phenomenal. And
this may be heresy for me to say this, but he may have the benefit of playing with the most talented quarterback in Ole Miss history.
Well, you may,
Matt Corral.
I mean, obviously, that's Connerly, Gibbs, Archie, and Eli. That is an unbelievable group. And then even the guys that didn't make it and stick in the pros, Bo Wallace was great. Chad Kelly was great. There's others too, Ken Austin and so on. But
Sure.
You're right. Matt Corral, I call him at the college level. Don't know what it'll look like at the pro level. He will get an opportunity, as you alluded to. But I refer to Matt Corral as a little bit of Patrick Mahomes light. He can throw it from any, arm slot. He's got the athleticism, and he's got a big arm and accuracy. So I can't wait to see what, Matt does next year to kind of cap off his career and may put himself in position to be a top 10 pick in the first round.
Well, if he comes back, Bo, and I think that's a big if. And I think Lane Kiffin doesn't know the answer to that right now either. I asked Lane about that on Monday. And ironically, he said they had just had a staff meeting about that exact thing earlier that day, where they've got to sit down with Matt and really see what his intentions are. Will he come back? Is he going to test the waters of the draft? Sure he is. He's going to test the waters. Doesn't mean he's going to declare. If he comes back, I think he's a Heisman Trophy candidate going into next season. But he will not have Elijah Moore to throw to. I mean, that's pretty much a foregone conclusion. Elijah has nothing else to prove in the college game. He's going to go in the draft. He hasn't said that, but the kid's he's going to declare for the draft.
Sure.
And all those things are going to be factors in Matt's decision. There's no doubt about it.
Man, Elijah Moore made himself a lot of money. It's just it's remarkable. He's first-round talent. May not be drafted in the first round. I think he'll definitely be off the board in the second. And I tell you something else that I think you know this because you cover the team on a daily basis, but I think what people sleep on, kind of like Jalen Walton, there's just different players that are small but super strong. Mm-hmm. Elijah is built better than people, I think, may recognize. As far as he may be short, but his physical stature is pretty impressive.
Yeah, no doubt. And he's got great vision when it comes to being on the field. He sees things. And what you just brought up is straight. I mean, Elijah Moore at 5'9", he's breaking tackles. Mm-hmm. Not only is he elusive, but he's breaking tackles in the open field. And it's going to be interesting to see how his skill set pairs up in the NFL. But we're going to get to find that out next year because if you think Elijah Moore is thinking about coming back for a senior season, he's not. He's not going to come back. There's absolutely no reason for him to come back. Whereas with Matt Corral, you could see him possibly coming back because, as you just said, he could be a top 10 pick after next season if he comes back and does the same thing. But without Elijah Moore on the field, he risks the possibility of his numbers dipping next year as well. And also, don't discount the fact that big old right tackle Royce Newman is headed to the NFL after this season. And, that's going to affect some protection, which he's been protected very well this year by that Ole Miss offensive line.
Yeah, Jim Nagy, executive director of the Senior Bowl, raves about Royce Newman and the career. I've been doing it all year. All year I've been saying, look, watch Royce Newman play. And it's hard for fans to watch an offensive lineman play during a game. Your eyes trained on the football, wherever the ball goes. But anybody that'll take 10 minutes and watch Royce Newman play a couple of drives, you understand why he's in that Senior Bowl and why I think Royce is probably going to go in the third round. I think he's going to be that high of a pick. He is tall, long, athletic, has great feet. He's everything you want out of an NFL tackle prospect. Yeah.
And good for him because I'm going to tell you, I know him. He's a great kid, and he comes from a great family. And I'll share a little story with you, and I don't think his mom would mind this, but the day he was selected for the Senior Bowl, his mom actually texted me wanting some information about the Senior Bowl and wanting to know how much it was going to cost them for Royce to play in the Senior Bowl.
That's fantastic.
And I said, Miss Kim, your son's about to be a millionaire. And it doesn't cost anything to play in the Senior Bowl, but they were concerned about that. So it couldn't happen to a better kid. and a better family. I'm so excited for the Newmans.
Out of bounds, 105.9 The Zone. David Johnson, Ole Miss Insider, Rebels 247, joining us on the Abita Andy Gator guest line. Let's switch gears to recruiting. MJ Daniel, what is the latest? Do you feel like Ole Miss is now in the lead? What's happening there?
I think they're in the mix. I would not be surprised. Let me say this: if MJ decommitted from Mississippi State, and I think Ole Miss is in the mix, but I think there's another school, a third school, if you will, out of the SEC West that has his attention, and that's Texas A&M. So, I'm not 100% sold that he's actually going to flip to Ole Miss because A&M is involved in his recruitment. And I had somebody inside his camp tell me that last night, very confidently, that Texas A&M was still involved.
And he's teammates with McKinley. He was last year teammates with McKinley Jackson, who signed with A&M last year, right?
Correct. That is exactly right, and I wouldn't discount that at all. I know Ole Miss has done extremely good work with MJ. They never let off of MJ. They stayed in constant contact with him. And look, let's be honest, inside the state of Mississippi right now, Ole Miss has got the momentum. So does MJ want to stay in Mississippi, or does MJ want to leave and maybe go to the Lone Star State? I think that's what it boils down to right now.
Who are some other guys that are trending that way?
Yeah, well, I think there's no doubt about Luke Altmaier is just waiting to pick his time that he's going to commit to Ole Miss. That's the Starkville High quarterback. I believe that's going to happen. And I'll tell you this much, I'm pretty confident because I'm getting this strong lead from sources inside his camp. Brandon Buckhalter will flip to Ole Miss, I would say within the next 10 days or so. He's going to flip before signing day. I do believe that.
Buckhalter out of Hartfield Academy. David Johnson on he's a wide receiver out of Hartfield Academy on Lakeland Drive. David Johnson, Rebels 247. Go ahead, David.
Yeah, and they're making a push for McCallum Pounders, who is committed to offensive lineman out of Byhalia, committed to Mississippi State right now too. I'm not as confident that they're going to be able to flip Pounders from State, but there is an effort underway, a strong effort to exactly make that happen. So that's one to keep an eye on too if you're talking about these in-state recruiting wars right now.
Out of bounds, 105.9 The Zone. Anything out of state going on, David?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, they're doing good work. Ole Miss is doing good work up on the Eastern Seaboard in New Jersey, Philadelphia. A couple of defensive linemen up out of that area that I think they've got a really good shot with. One being Tywone Malone, and I think that's another Ole Miss Texas A&M battle that is shaping up right now. Of course, he is the big hurt too. He's also a great college baseball prospect. That is going to factor into his decision. And because of COVID, with Malone, who's the number 5 defensive tackle in the country, the only place he has visited this year is Ole Miss. He came to Ole Miss on a baseball visit back in February.
Okay.
And met John Rice Plumlee, met Jerrion Ely, and he says he's going to try to visit some more schools in the month of January. He's a February decision guy. But, I kind of like where they're setting with him and getting a 4-star defensive tackle prospect that, in all honesty, could come into this program and make an impact next year as a true freshman. Because if there's any position on the roster, Bo, and everybody that's watched the Rebels this year understands this, that they need critical help at, it's the defensive line.
Sure. David Johnson, Rebels 247 on the Out of Bounds show. What do you expect from John Rice Plumlee? Do you expect him to transfer out so that he can play quarterback somewhere?
That's a great question. Hey, I just got a text from one of your longtime listeners, too, Joe Davidson from Cleveland, Mississippi, asked me to give him a shout-out. So I'm going to do that.
Hey, Joe, thanks for listening to the show, man.
All right, yeah, John Rice, man, that's not as simple as it may appear, I don't think, because you've got the baseball aspect of it, that John Rice is playing baseball at Ole Miss, too. And secondly, you've got what we talked about a few minutes ago, is Matt Corral staying or is Matt Corral going? And if Matt Corral decides he's going to go to the NFL and enter the draft, does John Rice go, hey, I got a shot at winning this job back, I'm going to stay? Now, those are two things that are going to, I think, go into John Rice's decision. He hasn't muttered a word about any of this right now. But from the baseball standpoint, I'll just be brutally honest. Mike Bianco recruits as good as anybody in the country.
Sure.
I don't think John Rice is a big factor in the Ole Miss baseball program. I don't know that John Rice would ever start a game for the Ole Miss baseball program. Now, that being said, I think he's still got to think about that a little bit. And I think he's got to look at, okay, if Matt Corral goes, do I stay? And then you got to ask yourself, if I stay, am I what they're looking for to run this kind of quick, up-tempo, pass-eccentric offense? I don't think the answer to that is yes, Bo. So that's going to be, a major storyline once this season pulls in to chart and follow as to what John Rice Plumlee is going to do. And, he could very well choose to just stay here for another season of baseball and then make a decision. So it may not be a quick decision, but it's something we're going to be watching. And right now I don't think we know the answer to that.
We all watch the players on Ole Miss and Mississippi State. You cover recruiting. What did you think of Will Rogers' play?
I love him. I absolutely love Will Rogers. Let me tell you something. I think Mississippi State has a quarterback that is going to get them some victories in the future. What a great story. I mean, let's be honest. He beat out KJ Costello, this was supposed to be his team, and it's turned into Will Rogers' team as a true freshman. And it is always, always great to see a Mississippi kid, particularly at the quarterback position. We don't necessarily produce a lot of quarterbacks in the state of Mississippi, but they produced one in Will Rogers. And I think he's a perfect fit for Mike Leach. It's a great story considering Minshew's connections to the state of Mississippi and what Mike Leach did with him. I think he can do the same thing with Will Rogers. And, on our message board Saturday night, there were some Ole Miss fans going, man, I wish we'd have went after Will Rogers. I wish we'd have signed Will Rogers. Will Rogers is a name to keep on the tip of your tongue moving forward with this Mississippi State program. And I've been nothing but impressed with Will Rogers.
We'll wrap it up with this, David. If everything holds, the bowl games, Ole Miss will be going to a bowl game this year. And they still could play two more regular season games, against LSU and A&M. I know they want them bad. So they're scheduled to play LSU next weekend, and they're hoping to play A&M December 19th. Is that the latest, David?
We just don't know. I mean, they don't know who to prepare for right now. That's all really in the hands of Greg Sankey and the SEC. And we're going to all find that out at the same time, both.
David, thank you so much for your time today. Have a great week, man.
All right, Bo, as always, thanks for having me on.
Thanks, man. And thanks to Joe in Cleveland, Mississippi, one of my favorite towns in the world, for listening to the show. I appreciate that. And I appreciate the shout-out by David Johnson, Rebels 247. If you missed any of the show, the podcast is on Apple Podcast. It was heavy Mississippi kids, recruiting, some high school football state championships coming up. They'll be on ESPN 105.9 The Zone. And obviously heavy Ole Miss Rebels and Mississippi State Bulldogs. Our podcast is on Apple Podcast. Search the Out of Bounds Show. The show is presented by Went McGee, the mortgage man. He'll shop the best rates for you. Went McGee, mortgagemanms.com. See you tomorrow.